Today, we're going to talk about something really cool, a remarkable evolutionary hack. It's a kind of biological superpower you'll find in some of the most important plants on the planet, an upgrade that lets them absolutely thrive where other plants just can't. All right, let's just jump right in with a bit of a riddle. You've got corn, which feeds millions. You've got sugarcane, our main source of sugar. And then you have crabgrass. You know, that super annoying weed in your lawn that just will not die? What on earth could these three possibly have in common? Well, the answer is pretty surprising. It turns out they all have this incredibly powerful engine running under the hood. They have all, completely independently, evolved a high-octane version of photosynthesis. And that is what we're digging into today. But to really get why this superpower is such a big deal, we have to talk about the problem it's fixing. Because, as it turns out, the standard everyday version of photosynthesis has a pretty major bug, a really wasteful one. You see, the vast majority of plants on Earth use what we call C3 photosynthesis. It's the original model. It's been powering life for billions of years, and for the most part, it works. But it has this hidden weakness, a flaw that really rears its ugly head when the plant is under stress. And that flaw has a name: photorespiration. Okay, so at the very center of photosynthesis is this super important enzyme called rubisco. Its entire job is to snatch carbon dioxide out of the air. But here's the problem. Sometimes it gets confused. It messes up and grabs an oxygen molecule by mistake. And when that happens, the whole assembly line just short circuits, wasting a ton of precious energy. It's a huge, costly error. Yeah, it's kind of like Rubisco is this brilliant employee who's absolutely essential to the factory, but gets distracted really easily. When it's focused, it does its job perfectly. Carboxylation, grabbing CO2 to make sugars. Awesome. But when it's not paying attention, it grabs O2 instead, oxygenation, and triggers that whole wasteful process. And here's the kicker. This problem gets way, way worse when it's hot and dry. But hey, evolution is pretty clever, right? Faced with this massive inefficiency, especially in those really hot, sunny parts of the world, some plants came up with a fix, and it is absolutely ingenious. So, somewhere around 35 million years ago, a new system started to evolve. It's not a total replacement of the old one. Think of it more like a powerful add-on, a software update, and we call it C4 photosynthesis. So how does the C4 thing actually work? Well, the best way to think about it is as a CO2 delivery service. It acts like a turbocharger on an engine, just forcing more CO2 into the system. Or maybe a better analogy. It's like a VIP escort for carbon dioxide, grabbing it at the door and delivering it directly to Rubisco, making sure it never gets distracted by oxygen. Now, this clever chemical trick couldn't just happen on its own. To make it work, it actually required a complete redesign of the leaf's internal architecture. The first big change is a totally new physical layout. And here you can see it plain as day. On the left, a typical C3 leaf. Looks a little disorganized. But check out the C4 leaf on the right. See that super distinct ring of big cells wrapped tightly around the leaf veins? It almost looks like a wreath. In fact, that's what it's called, Kranz Anatomy. Kranz is the German word for wreath. And this special two-layer structure, that is the secret sauce. So this Kranz Anatomy basically creates a two-room VIP suite inside the leaf. The outer cells, the Mesophyll cells, they're like the antechamber. That's where CO2 first comes in and gets captured, and this is so important, there's no Rubisco here. Then you have the inner room, the bundle sheath cells. This is the main event. It's like a sealed-off inner sanctum, and that's where they pack in all the Rubisco, ready to get to work in this super CO2-rich space. Okay, so here's a map of the whole chemical pathway. It might look a little complicated, but you can clearly see the two rooms we just talked about, the mesophyll cell up top and the bundle sheath cell below, and you can see the molecules being passed between them. Let's just walk through it real quick. All right, so step 1. In that outer room, an enzyme grabs CO2 and makes a new 4-carbon molecule. And hey, that's where the name C4 comes from. Simple enough? Step 2. This 4-carbon molecule then gets shuttled into the inner room. Step 3. Once it's inside, bam, it drops off the CO2. And step 4, this is the magic part. That inner room gets absolutely flooded with carbon dioxide. The concentration gets so high that our distracted friend Rubisco literally has no choice but to grab CO2. It just can't make a mistake. Problem solved. Okay, so you're probably thinking, wow, that sounds complicated. And you're right, it is. It takes more energy, a whole new anatomy. So why would evolution even bother? Well, because the payoff is enormous. This upgrade gives C4 plants some massive advantages. First, it basically eliminates that wasteful photorespiration. This means they absolutely thrive in the exact conditions that C3 plants hate. Tons of heat, tons of sun. They're also way more efficient with nutrients like nitrogen, but the biggest advantage, the real game changer, it's all about water. And get ready for this, because this is the mind-blowing part. For every single molecule of CO2 it grabs, a C4 plant loses about 277 molecules of water. A C3 plant? It loses 833. That's almost 3 times more water wasted. It's a staggering difference in efficiency, and it lets C4 plants keep growing long after C3 plants have had to shut down. So what does this mean for the whole planet? Well, C4 plants are actually pretty rare, only about 3% of all plant species. But, and this is wild, this tiny group of overachievers is so productive that they're responsible for nearly a quarter of all the carbon that gets pulled out of the atmosphere by land plants. They are punching way, way above their weight. So this isn't just some interesting story from evolutionary history. This ancient biological hack might just hold the key to solving one of humanity's biggest modern challenges. Let's talk about rice. It's a C3 plant running on that old, inefficient engine we've been talking about. And it's the primary food source for more than half of the people on this planet. So, what if we could give rice that C4 superpower? And this isn't science fiction. There is a massive international effort, the C4 Rice Project, that is trying to do exactly that. Engineer the C4 pathway into rice. The goal is transformative. I mean, look at this quote. Success could mean a 50% jump in yield, all while using less water and less fertilizer. Just think about what that means. Which leaves us with a final, crucial question. In a world with a growing population and a changing climate, could harnessing this 35-million-year-old metabolic pathway be one of the most important tools we have for ensuring we can feed